Network Entertainment.
Or they say
innovative
advocacy. Wag pa. Masakit sa heart.
right
Advocacy.
right
Or organization. It should
correct.
actually be organization.
Correct. My point is, so if you're really mindful, those should be your cues.
Yeah.
People who are better at speaking English than others probably are more mindful.
Right.
Don't be afraid of speaking English, okay? And don't smart shame people who want to learn to speak English. It's not bad to want to learn the language, right? Or to be an Englishero or an Englishera. Yun, kasi there are more benefits to it than you understand. Right. So, don't be afraid of it. And make it your friend. Because it will help you along the way. And I believe that having good communication skills, especially in English, will help you improve your life. Whatever in life you're doing.
Hi, this is Mirza Season. Welcome to You Can Do This, a podcast that'll help you achieve your dreams and goals one episode at a time. What are you waiting for? Let's go!
Ever held back speaking up in a meeting or spent too much time perfecting an email over the fear of committing grammatical errors? But then you see so much bad grammar everywhere in mass media, social media, business correspondence, and even everyday conversations. With Taglish taking over as our lingua franca, AI doing all the writing, and the prevalent smart shaming of English speakers, does being fluent and articulate in English and upholding high grammatical standards still hold weight? How can communicating clearly and confidently in English still level up your life and career? Today, we have with us on the show, he's known as the Grammar Nazi on TikTok and Instagram with over 1 million followers. He had the thriving corporate career with industry giants like HSBC, Globe Telecom, GCash, and Home Credit, and now dedicates his time creating content to provide free, innovative, and unconventional English lessons to Filipinos through his huge social media platforms. He's also a published writer and has a column in the Manila Times called Grammar Rama. Please welcome Alvin Santos, also known as Pepe Wordsmith.
Hello.
Hi, Alvin.
Nice to meet you,
I'm so
Mirza.
thrilled to
Finally.
meet you.
Same here.
So finally, may kakampi na po ako sa pagiging grammar Nazi.
You
Dahil
are.
dun sa Summit Media, ako yung grammar Nazi. Parang wala akong pinalalagpas and not everybody was happy. But hopefully everybody learned.
Okay, hopefully.
And now that I'm not there anymore and I'm on my own, sometimes when I read things online, parang nagka-heart attack ako ng slight pero wala akong magawa.
Mini heart attack.
And I'm sure yan din ang na-feel mo when you decided to embark on
This journey.
Tell us about.
Yeah, it's more of a passion project, I would say.
Right.
So I think you're asking about my journey in
Yes.
content creation, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
It started in the pandemic, right? So out of sheer boredom, right?
Okay.
So I think every one of us was in that state of
Yes.
mind, right? So
Right.
confined in our own homes. So that prompted me to start my content creation journey actually on TikTok. So
Right.
pandemic.
And why did you decide to focus on this?
On English because that was my passion. That is my passion actually. So that's the reason, basically.
When did this passion start? Did it start in childhood?
Yeah. Interesting question. So whenever I'm asked of that question, who are your influences or that, no. First of all, I remember my college write-up. You know, the yearbook.
Yeah, the
na
yearbook.
write-up. No? So it said a grammar Nazi. Right? So that means just to support that I have always been into that. That has been my passion, right? So it starts at home, they say, right?
Right,
So
right.
my accidental influence, I would always write about and say, was my sister.
Okay.
So I have an older sister. She is 10 years my senior.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm the youngest, so she's the eldest. And I was the accidental a prodigy, I would say.
okay.
She would make snarky remarks. But of course, just to herself, right?
Right.
Unknowingly influencing me because I was
Okay.
always tugging
Right.
with her. She would always make these remarks when she heard people on TV, etc., right? About say something wrong or pronounce something wrong, and she would make those
Kinokorek me
remarks
out loud.
exactly, and those have been core memories.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think may kanya-kanya tayong core memories, diba? We each have our own core memories, and it's funny that my core memories are made up of those instances where my sister would correct people, and I would be there under her nose, literally, right? So I would probably get it, and that's where it started, I would say. Also, I have always been fascinated and impressed by people with good turn of phrases.
Right.
You know, when I listen to someone who's good at speaking English or who can convey his or herself very well, especially in English, I'm very impressed.
Right.
I have been very impressed with
So
people
you
like
grew
that.
up in an English-speaking household?
No, not even.
Oh, not even?
No.
Okay.
My first language is Tagalog.
Okay.
Actually, so which proves that hindi kailangan yun para
Okay.
to learn English, right?
It's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. But, which I think what we need today, right? I'll digress a bit, but today kasi I notice how children nowadays don't even know how to speak Tagalog.
Yes,
And
they're
that's-
not fluent in either.
Oh, parang it's that's painful, right? Considering I'm into English, but I consider that as not a good thing.
Right.
I would always advocate, especially Filipino children, knowing the language first, because that's how I was,
Right.
And that's how most people were before,
Right.
and we were okay. No, we learned the language well,
Right.
and we can still speak Tagalog well. So I would always say na it's very important to know your first language, which is Tagalog muna, and then English comes second.
Last year, I was in the UP National Writers Workshop in Iloilo. And, so we were, I think, 15 fellows and then all these panelists, which were professors,
Yes.
doctors. I was surprised because the medium of instruction during the workshop was Filipino. And everyone was fluent in Filipino. Well, both Filipino and English. I kind of felt ashamed because I thought I spoke Filipino well. But when I heard everybody speak, I felt so embarrassed kasi parang polysyllabic Filipino na talaga sila na university level. So I kind of felt like at a disadvantage. Like maybe I was good in English, but my Filipino was sorely lacking. And maybe that's the ideal, diba? To be fluent in both.
Both. Correct.
Right. And so how did you become fluent in English if it's not your first language?
Okay. First of all, through school, right? So my parents did not talk to us in English at all at home.
Wow.
At all.
Amazed.
So it started in school, basically, right? So that is also my point because it happened to me. I know it can be done.
Right.
Children who know Tagalog first can study English and can speak in English well in school. Probably it starts in school. No? So I have my school to be thankful for.
It means
for
you
that.
listened and you learned.
Speaking of listening and learning, it's a good segue. I now teach English also.
Right,
I'm an
right.
English coach, right? So it's not academic. My approach is purely not academic. It's very practical because I'm more of a coach. But going back to that point, speaking and listening, I think if there's one thing about me that's different from the rest, it is that I am very mindful
Right.
of what I listen to and what I consume ever since I was young, right? So that's the advice that I would also give. I would always give my learners is to be mindful of what you consume, what you listen to, the movies that you watch, the books that you read, the podcasts that you listen to, right? So
Right.
be mindful of how people say things. And there is no monopoly over good speech. It's
Right.
okay to copy people. There's no such thing as plagiarism when it comes to developing your turn of phrase.
Right. Because people might say maybe being articulate in English is a function of privilege or you were born into it, right? Or
Absolutely.
because you're from the States, right? But if you say that English was not your first language
Wasn't.
and the same lessons were taught to people, I mean, English is still taught in our schools.
Right.
Why is everyone not fluent? What happens along the way?
It's probably about education, first of all, right? So I would still think, and I would go back to saying that there's an education problem in the Philippines.
Yes, definitely.
For sure, right? And I have seen that firsthand with my interaction with my viewers, right? Especially when I started doing content creation. You will be surprised how a lot of people, hundreds of people, or even thousands of people find the simplest thing as pronouncing a word very fascinating and something that they haven't known about before, right?
It wasn't taught or they weren't listening?
Maybe both, right? So it goes back to, I think I was very privileged to have come from a good institution, especially during my formative years, and I have my school to thank for that. And not everyone enjoys that, right? So that's probably where it's coming from.
Right.
Kumbaga, iba kasi yung curriculum. Curriculum may be the same, but the instruction, iba kasi yung level for private schools, I would say.
Right.
And from public schools, I would say that would probably one of the reasons.
But if you didn't speak it at home, where did you practice speaking in English?
In school.
In school.
In school,
Okay.
yes. So
to your
we speak it every
classmates.
day. Yes.
Okay.
So practically we had, where I came from, our English class was called language.
Yes.
In grade school.
Right.
Grade school, high school. And then so we had that for every day. So our method of instruction was English. So we spoke in English every day.
Right.
Basically. So that's where you train yourself and probably hone
Right.
yourself. Yeah.
So would you say that it's the lack of practice that
Yes.
makes English
Yes.
fluency
Yes.
deteriorate?
Right. So I would always go back to this point, right? So I'm not sure about you, Mirza, but my first language is Tagalog, right? So, and I learned to speak Tagalog from the moment I can remember,
Right.
right? And that was because I listen to it, I hear it, even when I was young, right? So the moment I could think, I couldn't even remember the first time I learned to speak Tagalog, right? From the moment I can
Right.
remember, I could speak Tagalog.
Right.
And that was because that's what I listened to.
Right.
That's what I hear in my environment. Like I
Right.
told you, my parents didn't speak to us in English.
Right.
We were purely Tagalog at home. So that was my first language. So similarly, you should create that environment for you that lets you listen to it.
Right.
Now create that environment that makes you listen to it so that it becomes a second skin
Right.
and that you absorb it. And so yung ganun lang yung method, diba? It's not rocket science, really.
Right.
You learn from that, from listening.
Right.
And kung ano yung mga naririnig mo sa paligid mo. Yeah.
So it's familiarity.
Familiarity.
And the habit of practice.
Right, exactly, right? So that's how we learn. That's how
For
we
me
learn.
naman, my first language is English.
Mm.
And I went to a school where Filipino instruction was not prioritized.
Oh.
So it was a Montessori school. When I went to high school, I went to a science high school, a public science high school,
Okay.
Manila Science. Tagalog naman doon.
Okay,
In fact,
okay.
during the 70s, when I was in high school, 3 subjects were taught in Filipino. Araling Panglipunan,
yes, tama.
YDT, Youth Development Training, which had health, and Filipino itself.
Yeah, exactly.
I was so bad that I was failing.
Mm.
And to learn, I had to watch Tagalog movies and read Filipino comics,
they say.
every day. And eventually, my
That's how you
grades
learn.
went up.
Exactly.
And that's how I learned.
Exactly. It's an environment that you create that will help
Right.
you do it, right? So if you listen to something over and over and over again, right? So what are the chances that you won't learn it? Very slim,
Yes.
right? So
Right.
yeah, and so
So that's why you say good grammar is a lifestyle.
yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly, right? So also because people size you up in terms of your grammar.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
So
right?
that still happens today.
Some people, right? So
Right. In the
exactly.
corporate world,
especially in
was
the corporate
this,
world.
Okay, please expound on that.
Yeah, because when you apply for a job, right, the instruction would always be in English, and that's a top of mind thing that always comes to me. No? So, so when people will size you up based on that, I always say, right?
Right.
So it's important for you to have not naman impeccable, but
A
at
good
least
command.
a good command of the
Right.
language, right? So and the decent
Right.
English, kasi the instruction or the method of communicating in the corporate is through English talaga.
Yeah. And
right?
it's the language
it's
of
a business. And it's a
right?
universal language pa rin, right? So, we cannot underestimate the importance of knowing.
So it still
English.
matters no matter what people
Very
say.
much, very much so, very much so. But it's not I'm not saying it's the end all and be all
Right.
of becoming successful, right?
Right.
So, like what I said, I would always still advocate Filipino children learning Filipino first
Right,
because they could
right.
learn it from
Right.
in school at one point in their lives, in the formative years, hopefully, right?
Do you
So-
encounter students or people who want to learn English encountering smart shaming when trying to practice English
Oh yes.
with their friends?
Oh yes, oh yes. So they have. I have heard of horror stories. If
Horror
if
talaga.
I put it that way.
Right.
Of that, right? So, but thankfully for me, naman, I haven't experienced that because I make sure that I have close relationships or with these people. I correct.
Right,
Otherwise, I won't correct them. Right. So it's actually. I wouldn't say it's not a good practice to correct people.
Oh yeah.
It's not a practice, so
Right.
don't do that unless you're, of course, comfortable and you're in that space with that person that allows you to do it.
Right.
Like, for example, if you're husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, or I'm like
Dapat
that to my
ganun
nieces or
ganun
my
ka-close.
nephews, right? So there's, but otherwise, don't go there, right?
Right.
So I don't go there. So what I do in grammar Nazi peg, it's just a peg. It's just for clout, right?
Right.
Diba? So if
But
you, if
in
you
real
notice-
life, you are not a
yeah,
Nazi.
of course. If you notice, I'm talking to someone, but it's just me
Right.
using the AI voice, right? So
Oh, okay.
it's not an actual person, right?
Right.
So because you shouldn't do that in person, that's rude,
Right.
So,
I corrected a friend once kasi nag-post siya na sobrang glaring yung error.
Yeah,
So, private message ko
Constantly.
siya. Kinarect ko.
Yeah,
Tapos
so-
nagalit siya.
Oh,
Sabi
are
niya,
you still friends?
sorry na lang. Sorry, tao lang po. We're still friends. Pero parang na-offend siya.
Really?
Sabi niya, sorry, tao lang po. Like, galit.
Oh no!
Or he'll say, inyo na yung English nyo, akin na yung pera. Mga
Oh,
ganyan.
oh my god,
So-
that's a toxic.
So not everyone appreciates being corrected.
Unfortunately, even if you're friends, no, if you like your friends, so
right.
okay, that probably comes with the territory. That's a hazard to it.
But a lot of Filipinos are also jahe to speak in English with their friends because of the smart shaming nga, di ba? Like, if they wanna practice speaking in English, pa-English ka na
Englishera.
yan. Englishera.
Halata.
What can you say about that?
about people shaming other people for
Yeah.
speaking English?
Yes.
I don't care. And you shouldn't also.
Oh yeah, so shouldn't you?
Yeah, diba? You can, just let them be and just do your thing. Right? For as long as you don't step on other people's toes,
Right.
or so hurt other people.
Right.
Diba? So that should be the least of your worries. What other
Right.
people should think
Oh,
about.
and if they brag that they're Englishera, what can you say about that now?
Similarly,
Right.
we all should mind our own business.
Right.
That's how I put it talaga. I'm in my mid-40s now, and that's one of the things I learned, to be very authentic with yourselves and to don't mind other people, but just mind your own business. Right?
Right.
As long as you're not hurting you or not stepping on other people's toes, let them be.
Do you feel lost, doubting yourself, and tired? You question your worth and existence? Well, I'm here for you. Hey, this is Gailey Chavez, and I'm the host of Free Yourself Podcast. My podcast talks about self-love, self-discovery, and growth. This is for everyone who wants to live their fullest life and become the person that they could be. Let me help out and remind you that this is your life, your path, that you are not broken, and you are worth it. Catch me every Friday at 8 p.m. See ya!
How can people overcome this fear nga of English na they call it nosebleed? And immediately, di ba, they'll say, Nako, English, nosebleed, ikaw na lang kumausap instead of trying. What's your advice for that?
That's very toxic. That's a good question.
Right.
So I have been teaching people for more than a year now, and I have been having a blast teaching people, right? So helping people. And most of the time, and whenever I hear that as a concern, I would always say that they shouldn't do that because that would lead them nowhere, right? That would be their downfall, basically. There's this tired cliche that goes, practice makes perfect, and it couldn't be any truer than in learning a new language. For example, English. How would you learn something if you won't try it?
Right.
Simply put, Diba?
Right.
So when you say nosebleed or I'm embarrassed to even try. So nothing will happen. So you will stuck in that rut. Hindi mo
Or
siya-
sometimes when they smart shame others, maybe it's a defense mechanism because they
they
really
couldn't
don't
do
want to
it.
improve.
Probably they couldn't do it. Probably parang ganun. Yeah, probably that could be a thing also. Yeah, pero they should go out of that mindset.
Right.
That would be their doom. Hindi talaga yun, it's a black hole.
So what do you advise your students about becoming articulate and fluent in English?
A lot of things, but the first thing that comes to mind, like, I always go back to being mindful. A lot of the things that I know today in terms of how I say things, how I explain myself, really come from the things that I learned from my environment, which I picked up along the way because of my being mindful. Diba? So you should be like sponges. You should be like a sponge, like a child, diba? That's how I learned Filipino, because I was like a sponge nung bata ko. I just took it in. I just took it in. That similarly, if you want to learn that language now that you're older and you can filter what you take in, make sure to be more mindful now about that. Kung gusto mo talaga matuto, if you really want to learn that, no, it won't happen magically.
Right.
You have to put in the work.
Right.
It's like going to the gym. I always use that analogy, right? So if you want a better body or a gym body, it won't happen overnight.
Right.
Right? You have to put in the work. You have to go to the
Put
gym.
in
You
the
have to
reps.
have to show up. Diba? So it's actually it's the same thing with learning English.
Right.
Diba? I have people who are shy, and that's one of the reasons why you can't speak it that well now, because you have been shy.
Yeah.
You haven't been trying.
Right.
So at the end of the day, think about it this way. No one cares about what you say along the way, right? So just keep on trying. And that's how you improve eventually.
I think they're afraid to be corrected or to look stupid. So what's
So
your
what?
advice
Diba?
for that?
So what? What if you look stupid at one point, right? At least you tried.
Right.
And that is where you should take it as a learning opportunity.
Right.
Right. So you learn from these mistakes, right? So sounds corny, no? Pero it's true.
Right.
It's true. Kasi how would you learn if you won't make those
Right.
mistakes? And mistakes are not setbacks. It's actually opportunities
Right.
for learning. Diba? So whenever you have these opportunities for growth, that will actually make you remember it, no? And not do it again.
Right.
So in that sense, it becomes a milestone. Diba? Hindi mo na ulitin, dati sinabi ko tong word na to, or I did this faux pas or something na, for example, I used to say, it's a bad habit. Yung, how does it look like?
Kaya pala yun ang lagi.
That's why one of the things I said before, na parang,
Yeah.
pati kong sinasabi yun, right?
Pet peeve ko rin.
Diba? So when you say how, don't say like na, diba? Kasi nga, di mo dapat ginagawa yun. But
Right.
because of bad habit, you still say it. Pero pag nalaman mo na mali, nagkamali ka once, kinorekta ng isang person na kaibigan mo, thank the person for it. Para kasi, di ba? It's, di mo na siya magagamit ulit, and then move forward.
Speaking of faux pas na ayaw tumatak sa marami, meron akong compilation dito.
Really?
Anong mga top 3 mo na cringe-worthy English grammar errors?
Oh, okay. I would steer away from saying cringe. Baka sabihin mo, grabe naman yan.
Sige. Anong ibang word for cringe?
Probably,
He sees opportunity for growth.
probably. See, number 1, I will always tell my learners to stay away from this cardinal sin.
Okay.
I'll keep it to 1 na lang.
Yeah, sige.
Maganda to. So, it'll be talaga, save yourself from further embarrassment, everyone, by remembering this. So when you say the auxiliary verb did, so stick to the base form of the verb. So don't say the past form na, kasi double redundant yun, diba? And that will be very cringeworthy. It will cause secondhand embarrassment, no, from that. So I would
For
say siguro,
example?
not cringe, but because siguro secondhand embarrassment na lang. Let's put it that way, right? I'm not cringed out, but
So
I
politically
experience
correct.
secondhand embarrassment na nahihiya ako for the person.
Oo, tama.
Right? Kasi parang kawawa naman, parang people will size you up
We
for
feel
that.
for you. We're not laughing at you. We feel
Exactly.
for you.
Na parang na-miss out mo ba yun sa school before? I'm sure it was taught before, right? So parang yun kasi isang bagay. So pag nag-did ka na, bang sabihin, who did ate my cake? Mga ganyan.
Or
So,
did you went? Did you went to the church?
I will be cringeworthy, right? So probably that stands out talaga.
Right.
And parang that will be the end of you. So
What do you think is the reason why this error keeps recurring? Like, do
Good
they
question.
not hear it often enough
to learn the correct.
Probably it's because nag-start siya sa did. So, in the person's head, past tense. Dapat past tense din ako.
Kino-conjugate niya. Parang.
Kino-conjugate niya. Yeah. It's probably a common thing. Parang it rolls off the tongue easier kung di mo talaga alam yung rule. Kasi probably that is the thing about English. And probably Filipino also. But I'm more into English now. So, it is not absolute at all. Right? It is very dynamic. It's very dynamic. It has exceptions to the rules.
Right.
And
so you have to
language.
memorize the exceptions.
Yun. It's exactly. Diba? You have to know the exceptions.
Right.
And these exceptions usually are those that don't roll off the tongue easy.
Right.
Yun yung mga kailangan mo tandaan. Yung mga did. Kasi mas maganda yung did. Eh. Parang, I remember one time, I also had this mistake. That's why, alam ko yan. That's so, no one's perfect. Right? So I did this mistake. Kaya ako naalala. Sabi ko sa inyo yung mga core moments ko na yung mga grammatical errors or ungrammatical statements rather. So there was this one time that Claudine Barreto said on line, tama siya eh. So Claudine has good command of the language, right? Sabi niya, I think she was talking about Rico Yan during that time, that they did break up, right? So parang in my head, kung sabihin ko, di ba did broke up? Para mas tama kasi yung did broke up to me that time. Pero kung tama siya did break up because did na nga, di ba, nag-break up. So, mga ganun type. So, sometimes it doesn't roll off the tongue easy. So, kailangan mo talaga, it takes practice. It takes practice.
Or
and
know the
knowing
context. Because if you say we did break up, it's for emphasis na.
Right.
Actually, nag-break kami. Rather than nag-break up.
Diba? Kasi parang sometimes sabihin mo, we did broke up. Parang mas, yung rule na yun medyo mahirap eh. Right? Kasi sometimes mas maganda sabihin yung did broke up. Yeah. But in fact, dapat did break up. Tama si Claudine, right?
And I think a lot of the problems ensue from directly translating from Tagalog. So for example, prepositions. In Filipino, isa lang yung preposition, sa. So ang hirap, ang hirap maintindihan. Like even before with people who worked under me, they couldn't, some had a hard time differentiating that you appear in a magazine, but you're on the cover of a magazine, but in the pages of a magazine. So parang, bakit in tsaka on? Or you are sitting at the table, not on the table.
Yeah. Prepositions are a tricky bunch. Very tricky bunch. So even I to this day have some difficulty with some of them. The thing about prepositions, there are no hard rules for most of them. So and some of the time you just need to encounter them so that you will learn them and make it stick in your head. Na yun ganun siya. Unfortunately, walang logic for all. Some may have logic. No? Some, like for example, prepositions for vehicles, may logic yan. Okay, preposition for chairs, may logic yan. Pero some, wala. For example, you're getting on my nerves and people will say, bakit on? It's in. Papasok sa nerves mo, di ba? Pero it's an idiom. So parang kailangan mo siyang alamin. Right? So these are things that you need to go out of your way to find out and make it stick in your head.
Or sometimes they add prepositions. Like they'll say, mention about. Or discuss about. Hindi na po kailangan ng about.
That's a tricky one actually.
Right? Or
ganyan. No, kaya,
craving for your favorite.
My favorite, yes. Nice one. People always say that. And even I would say that before. But when I encountered it, so the thing about being mindful, when you encounter a thing that is different from how you do it, say pronunciation or say grammar things, right? So when you're mindful, and when you notice someone or something say it differently from you, right? So that should be your prompt to check.
Yes.
And not necessarily accede to it kaagad na parang masama siya or not. No, of course not. You check first and
Google
check
it.
from the Google it, right? So and check from reputable sources, of course.
Yes.
Sino ba yung tama? Parang you said innovative kanina. I was happy about that because people who say innovative, you know how the Filipinos would
or they
pronounce
say
it, innovative.
Advocacy. Wag pa. Masakit sa heart.
Right.
Advocacy.
Right. So, for example, when you hear me just say those things, innovative, I say it innovative. She said it as innovative. Who's correct? So That's
I could
your
still be
prompt.
wrong. Baka British American lang.
I think I checked that on that na rin. So yung
So it's-
innovative, pwede naman daw British. Pero kasi tayo kasi English,
tama.
English ang ginagamit natin, diba? So it's
Right.
innovative, right? So
Or organization. It should
correct.
actually be organization.
correct.
I think
and
you can check.
and advocacy nga. It's very very rampant, diba? Yung
Right.
advocacy, pahilig tayo sa ganun, pero it should be advocacy, right? So yung impet na sa una. So my point is, if you're really mindful, those should be your cues.
Yeah.
Those should be your cues,
Right.
no? And that is probably what, in my head lang, no? After doing this for a year now, that's probably one of my, I would say, hypothesis na people who are better at speaking English than others probably are more mindful,
Right.
right? So aren't you mindful? We're probably, ikaw rin siguro naging mindful ko nung bata ka, right?
yeah.
So when you listen to things that are said differently.
And I'm always verifying.
Right.
Right. So
Probably
if you,
that, eh. It's
if
probably
you Google
that.
a word, actually, and then you come across the dictionary meaning, there is an icon there na parang speaker. If you press
That's
it,
it.
you'll hear the pronunciation.
Yeah, and then copy mo lang, right? So I think
So,
that's
gayahin
one-
nyo lang.
Exactly. So I think that's one thing, no? Being mindful and the ability to copy things is very
Yes.
important. To imitate things is very important. How people say things, gamitin nyo rin, and don't be afraid to use it in your own conversations.
Like nonchalant.
when necessary. exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, do you watch? You must watch a lot of movies and watch a lot of TV
Yes.
to immerse yourself.
More than reading books. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I have a hard time reading a book from cover to cover.
Okay.
Right, but I try. Kasi
Right.
kailangan din yun eh. Especially for vocabulary. But more than that, I'm more of a visual person.
Right.
I watch movies. I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of interviews even. I watch a lot of speeches. And one of my favorites is yung speeches sa Oscars. And
Oh,
ang dami mong
okay.
There are a
Right.
lot of things you can pick up from that.
Anong favorite Oscar speech mo?
There was this one speech na unfortunately hindi ko siya mahanap ngayon, no? Pero it has stuck with me ever since. I think I was still in high school noong time na yun. Someone said, in my head
Okay.
it was Gwyneth Paltrow.
Okay.
It was a girl in a pink gown. So
Siya
when,
nga.
when I was checking, hindi ko mahanap. Probably siguro
Shakespeare
Golden
in Love.
Globe. Sabi niya parang, it's a simple line that has always stuck with me. Ang galing. This is wilder than my wildest dreams. Ang simple lang, diba? This is wilder than my wildest dreams. So it's naaalala ko yung speech na yun because now there was this conversation on social media that has been stirring. Parang sabi, yung sa copy ko, Blanca, na creamier than your creamiest. And people would say, they would tag me always dun sa ano na yun. Sa tag niya, bakit bali yun, di ba, sir? Ganyan, kasi creamier na, creamiest pa. Ganyan, so, creamier than your creamiest. They find that weird kasi nga, creamier na, pero creamiest na. You get it?
Yeah.
But my point was, it's the similar thing. No? Parang it's wilder than my wildest dreams. It's just a figure of speech.
Yeah.
It's hyperbole, right? So in fact, it's not ungrammatical. It is actually
Right.
a wise use of words, di ba?
Right.
It's a figure of speech. Kaya ang ganda nga niya actually. So, yun, naalala ko yun parati. I love speeches. I love speeches.
And you would recommend that they do.
Yes, exactly.
What else do you recommend so that people can improve their English fluency?
Interviews like this. So probably this would be
okay.
one of the things I would show them. So in my classes, I make it a point to show them an interview that resonates with me. My favorite interviews from people, right? So and native speakers, non-native speakers at that. I would
Right.
always do that. No, Filipinos kasi para makarelate. So look at her. She could do it. No? So that shouldn't stop you from doing it also. Kasi someone can do it, diba? So whatever she did, kaya mo rin yan. It's just about really putting in the work. She probably did more work than you.
Right.
Ganun naman yun eh, right? So, and then interviews, yun nga, sasabihin ko, parati kong pinapakita yung mga interviews. Tignan mo kung how she spoke and how she explained herself, how she answered the question, her turn of phrase, di ba, paano siya magsalita, how she forms her phrases and sentences in her head. Yung mga ganyan, right?
And what's the mindset that they should employ so that they learn better?
Oh, they have to be, open-minded
Right.
all the time, right? So they have to unlearn things talaga. That's the thing about improving your speech when you're an adult. And I deal with adults na kasi, right? So there are things that you need to unlearn. So it's a two-step process pa. Unlike when you're learning from scratch. It's a one-step process, diba? Learn mo lang yung mga yan. Absorb mo lang. But now, in my practical approach, I also have them unlearn things. Kailangan mo rin i-unlearn niya kasi bad habit yan eh. Mali
Like
yung
what?
ginagawa mo. As a practical example, one of my learners would always say wanted. I wanted to do this eh. I wanted to do that. Wanted parate. Sabi ko, do you realize that you always use wanted instead of want?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
hindi past tense.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So he would tend to always use wanted in the past tense when in fact what he wanted to say.
Siguro yun yung nakasanayan ng ear.
Ng ear niya. Hindi niya nare-realize. So he needed someone to tell him na, alam mo ba, na yung isa yun sa mga mali mo. O kaya, yung filler niya is again. I say, but so obviously, you're repeating what you're saying, diba? So it doesn't have to be that way. Kasi sabi mo nga again eh, so dapat that's your cue dapat.
Ang peeve ko when people are talking about someone who's dead or died na.
Tapos
they speak in present tense. Like, buhay po ba siya o patay na? So why do you say like, my dad is always...
yeah. I get that. Yeah. Always refer to the people who passed in the past tense.
Unfortunately, it's something they did in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much. If there's only one takeaway that our listeners can have from this conversation about good grammar and why it still matters, what would
one takeaway?
Your one.
Okay.
Pwedeng two.
One or two. Don't be afraid of speaking English. Okay. And don't smart shame people who want to learn to speak English. It's not bad to want to learn the language, right? Or to be an Englishero or an Englishera. Yun, kasi there are more benefits to it than you understand. Right? So, yun, don't be afraid of it. And make it your friend. Because it will help you along the way. And I believe that having good communication skills, especially in English, will help you improve your life. Whatever in life you're doing. Right? I even have learners who is a housewife, a homemaker, and she wanted to do this because she wanted to communicate with her Gen Z daughter better.
Okay.
Diba? So it's not necessarily for work entirely. So you could do it for other purposes. So just go for it.
Go for it. You can do this.
You can do this, exactly.
Thank you so much, Alvin.
Thanks,
and where can people find out more about you and your courses and your coaching and social media?
You can find me on social media. So that's on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. My handle is Pepe_word_Smith. If you know, you know. Pepe Word Smith. Yeah, and you can find me there.
Right. And for the courses, like I forgot to ask about your IELTS.
Yeah. So I offer different courses. So there's the IELTS course. I help you navigate through the course if you're taking the IELTS soon.
What's it for?
IELTS is the International English Language Testing System. So this is what you need to take if you're planning to study or work abroad in an English-speaking country. So it's a requirement. So I help you navigate that. And also one-on-one speaking and coaching sessions.
Right.
So these are tailored fit for each learner's needs. So kung meron kayong gustong improve or whatever that is, I can help you with your goals in speaking. So you can find that link on my social media accounts. So see you in class soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thanks,
Thank
Mirza.
you, Alvin.
Thank you, Mirza.
Bye. Thank you for listening to You Can Do This. If you want to know more about me, visit Mirza.com. That's MYRZA.com. And follow me at Mirza Season on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you like this episode, please don't forget to rate it 5 stars. Hit the follow button on your podcast streaming platforms and hit the notification bell to get alerted every time we release a new episode. Catch you at our next convo, and always remember, you can do this.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.